Okay, it's another gorgeous day here down south in Louisville, Kentucky, and we're gonna do a little video outside, and we'll take a look today at what I believe to be about a 1952 Valco amplifier. Not sure on the model number quite yet. We will research that a little bit later. This one is in as found condition. We have obviously a replaced handle up here on top, and you can see where actually a couple extra holes had to be drilled to accommodate that much later style handle. This would have had a handle with some brackets here and here, and it would have been a leather style handle. We will track one of those down. If I have to order one, I will, to get an appropriate style handle on there. But that's not the only thing we're gonna look at. We're also going to take a look at the circuit, but just condition wise, we can see, you know, we've got the usual sort of condition issues we would expect to see on a 1952 amplifier of this sort. This is kind of a tweed covering, and it's a bit frayed here, a bit frayed on the back edge there as well. Some discoloration, of course. We've got some more fraying on the lower portion of the cab up front. A little piece of tape holding on some of the fraying up here. What I like to do, and I will go through the process this time. I've actually skipped this on former videos, but I kind of realized that I probably shouldn't have. We will go through the process of sort of sorting that out and gluing that all back down. So that'll be one of the things that we take care of. The chassis is real dirty, which kind of leads me to believe this thing hasn't been touched very much, probably. It has a two-prong cord on it, which I'm not sure whether or not it's original. It looks like it could be. It's definitely from the era. The reason I think it's a 52 is because we have a speaker code in there that has a 2/46th week of what I believe to be 1952, and I think this is the original speaker. So weird, not a weird tube configuration, but a weird tube layout for sure. Over here we have an octal preamp, and I think this is an SC7. Yeah, that tube, I'm not sure, it's whatever it is, it's rubbed off, so I think it's an SC7 because it looks like we have dual triodes inside there. You can see the envelope that contained the spare fuse, but it's been opened at some point, but it's still there. It's kind of rare to see. But yeah, the layout is kind of weird because where you would expect to see the transformer all the way to the end, or not the transformer, the rectifier all the way to the end where the power stuff is, you actually see the output tube. The output tube is all the way over here. It's a 6V6, and then you see the 5Y3 rectifier over on this side closer to the preamp, which is just weird as hell. If I got this with no tubes, I would have swore up and down and assumed this would be the 6V6 and this would be the rectifier. But I've had it plugged in and it does work like just like this, so this is the original configuration. It does say Valco Manufacturing Company, Chicago 51, and the chassis looks to be in pretty good shape. Just, again, it needs to be cleaned. So alright, let's take this thing inside and get the chassis out and get a little better look at the guts. Okay, well, this is interesting. I've got the back off this thing, and the very first thing that I notice is obviously someone has clipped these wires before and just basically wrapped them back around one another and left them dangling here. I mean, inches away from the speaker. So, you know, that's not really good at all. I mean, these wires short across, or one of them bangs against the metal basket, and, you know, boom, there goes your output transformer. So that's pretty dumb. Anyway, we're going to clean this up. We'll come in here and solder these wires together and put some shrink tubing on over these to keep them from shorting out. Get a little better look at our codes here. That's definitely a 285. That should be Rolla. 2 is 1952, 46th week, I'm pretty sure. These are the same kinds of Rolas that you would see used in also Dan Electro's. I've pulled one or two of these speakers out of Dan Electro's before because they had been blown. I mean, you can see this is a very small magnet, not an overly huge voice coil in this either. I wouldn't imagine. It's probably just enough power handling for this amp and probably will be fine. Because this actually is a 5-watter. The ones that I've pulled out of Dan Electro's before have been in amps with like 2 6v6s instead of just the one. So I think this one should be fine. And it definitely sounds good. I've already fired the amp up and it does sound good. Needs to be dusted out for sure. Just generally cleaned up, spruced up in here. We can see inside just a little bit, and just from what little glimpses I've gotten, it looks like somebody probably has been in here before. But I mean, otherwise, why would they have clipped these off? But at the same time, I'm not really seeing anything that was changed right off the bat. So at least no brand new components are in here. So let's go ahead and pull this chassis and get a little better look. Alright, we got this bad boy cracked open, and I don't know, man, it's looking to me like this is probably 100% original. I'm looking here at the depth capacitor. This is a Mallory 0.02. Let's see if we can get that in focus. There we go. That's a Mallory 0.02. The solder joint is perfect on that. It's not, I mean, this looks different. The reason I'm honing in on this is because it looks different than all the other caps in the amp. These are Sangamos, and these are used a lot in Dan Electro's of the 50s as well. They're also used a lot. You see them a lot in organs from this sort of time period. These are also Mallory's here. I think one of these should have a date code on it. Let's see. No, it's a Sangamo also. Looks like a Mallory, but it's a Sangamo. So yeah, I don't see any date code on them though. There are date codes on the pots, and they are 304 manufacturer code. Let's see. Let's get them focused. 303. So that's the third week of 1953. So this amp is a very early 1953 amp, and once again, it is 100% original from what I can tell. Even the cord, which I had questions about at first, looks original to me because just because of the way the solder is on this. You can see the flux in there. That flux, the way it's crystallized and golden brown like that, that just looks really like it's been there a long time. And the fact that this thing is wrapped so well tells me that this is probably the first time anything has been wrapped on that terminal. So the cord is original. That death cap is original, even though it looks different than the Sangamos. And everything else looks 100% original as well. So here's, in light of this information, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fix the leads going to the speaker, and everything else I'm going to try to leave in here. Normally I would come through and shotgun an amp like this if it had already been worked on and some things were not original anyway. But in this case, I think I'm going to leave this as it is. Main reason is it sounds really good as it is. I will clean these. I'll clean the input jacks. I will clean the sockets, pots. But other than that, I don't think it's going to need a whole lot. I will go ahead and clip this Mallory out and just leave it, probably leave it hanging on one end, just so it can stay in the amp, and then put a 3-prong cord in it. and again fix those leads going to that speaker so that they're not just dangling loose like that. And I think we're going to call it a day on this thing, because I just don't want to disturb it too much. I don't want to come in and replace components that really, you know, don't have to be replaced. And an amp of this sort of age, it's kind of cool to have a lot of the original components when you first crack one open. If you're anything like me, it's nice to see some of the older stuff left in, especially if it's still working. I mean, I'm not going to take this on tour, and I'm sure the next person isn't either. This isn't really an amp for that. This would probably go into a studio, and since it sounds so great as it is, the best thing to do is probably leave it. Now there's wax capacitor down here. These are usually pretty leaky. I'll fire this thing up and see if there's any leakage across that thing at all. And we'll test these other ones as well and just see if there's any leakage across them. And if they're not leaky, if they're not bad, then we're going to leave them. So let's clean it all up. We'll test those out. Take that, clip that out, fix the leads, new 3-prong cord, and we'll be ready to go. Before we move any further, I just wanted to show you the top part of this chassis while we had this thing out. And look how filthy it is. Obviously somebody's tried to clean it about as far as they could reach, but can't reach a round object. So look how filthy this thing is. Jeez. Yeah, as I suspected, it is a 6SL7, and you can just barely read that. So at least the tubes are marked. And that's the 5Y3. You can just barely see the 5 there. So that is where the 5Y3 belongs, interestingly and weirdly enough. So this would be the 6V6, but we're gonna get a rag and clean this off. I'll show you what I do to clean a chassis like this. This is basically painted steel chassis, and these hold up pretty well. These old Valcos do. They hold up, I mean, really well, in fact. But I will show you what I usually do to clean a chassis like this right now. All I do is I just get a damp rag or kitchen cloth or something. I mean, not wet, but just damp, impregnated with a little bit of dish soap, and just go to town on it. I mean, the thing about it is, there's so much dirt and grime on here. If you don't just use warm, damp cloth with some dish soap on it, it's just going to take a lot of time. You're probably going to risk getting a lot of chemicals on yourself if you use some spray chemicals and all that mess. You know, this stuff is, water is safe, and so is dish liquid for you. A hell of a lot safer than some of the spray crap. And it's not going to hurt. No longer than this is going to be wet, it's not going to hurt your steel chassis. Just wipe it all down. If you want to go back over it with some a little bit of oil or some wax or something like that, to sort of protect it, that might be a good idea. But to initially get the dirt off, just use a damp cloth. After washing some of the dirt off this 5Y3, I actually finally see a date code on it, and it's 4th week of 1953 RCA. And here's the fully cleaned chassis. This is after hitting it with the damp rag, and then going back and hitting it with what I usually use is like guitar polish, something like this. I think this stuff is kind of oily, so it leaves behind a little bit of a residue, which helps protect the surface. But yeah, it looks great. Nice and shiny, very clean. It's almost like the day it was made. This paint on the front is almost, it's like a powder coat or something almost. It's like a car powder coating. But this is very durable paint on Valcos. This stuff stays on here for forever. Really nice. Did find another code on this transformer. It's a 166302. So this is a 1953. That one's the 2nd week of 1953. Manufacturer 166. I'm not sure who the manufacturer 166 is for transformers. I'm not sure if anybody really knows, but I've seen them on other things as well. There was actually I just did a video on a Gibson amp that had a 166 transformer in it. So if anybody knows who that manufacturer is, let me know. Yeah, that's a hell of a lot cleaner. That'll take care of the output transformer leads. All right, here's one of those situations where you kind of have to make a decision. This little resistor right in here is pretty crispy. I noticed it is on the power rail. It's the first resistor in the power rail. I double checked the schematic, and it's supposed to be 6800. The bands. And this is another thing that happens sometimes. The bands get so crispy you can't really see what color they're supposed to be. You know, that's blue and silver maybe, or gray and brown, but it's not brown. It's actually supposed to be red, and the schematic confirms this. And if we look here at the little resisto guide, which this thing is pretty cool. You got these little wheels up here that spin, and it tells you exactly what the resistance is supposed to be. So that's kind of cool if you haven't learned all of the resistor codes, which I mean sometimes I haven't. I have to think about it a lot, so this comes in handy. It's supposed to be 6800, and that jives with the and that is if that's red, and that jives with the schematic that I found for 510-11 Valco, which is from this period, which is what I think this is. The only difference between this amp that I found so far and a 51011 is that this has 25 microfarad bypass caps on both halves of the 6SJ7 instead of just one. This resistor is actually reading 4.4K rather than 6.8K. Which, I mean, that's really way out of tolerance. It's been cooked pretty good, and it's actually drawn the value down, which is kind of unusual for resistors. Most of these carbon resistors drift upward. This one's actually managed to drift downward. But you can see there, it's really crispy. It's way out of tolerance. The amp sounds great right now. It probably is letting through a lot more juice into the rest of the amp with this lower reading. I could leave it and just say, hey, this thing sounds great as is, or I could increase the reliability, put it back to stock, or I could make it about a 4.7K resistor and leave it about the value that it's drifted down to, but that's not going to be the stock value. So it's a decision that needs to be made, and I think what I'm probably going to do here is just hook in an original 6.8 K resistor into this this position. So sometimes you have to make these little decisions, and usually on something like this, stock is usually your best bet. I didn't have a 6.8 K resistor on hand, but a 6.2 K should be pretty good, and that's going to be kind of a compromise between the two values that we saw anyway. So we'll just roll with this 6.2. I think we'll be fine. We also have a 3-prong power cord installed, and I use a zip tie on the old retainer to keep it in here. There's no real hole in the chassis. It just kind of runs up behind the chassis. So, but that's not really going anywhere. I think that's pretty secure. Got the 3-prong, clipped out the depth capacitor and just kind of stowed it away underneath some wires here so it doesn't get tangled up in anything. But pretty much we're done, I believe, with this part of the service. We're going to plug it in now, bring it up slowly on a variac, and do some measurements. Make sure that these all these coupling caps aren't leaking, and so forth. Okay, we got a new handle for this thing. We also glued down the corners, and usually what I do on these corners is I just use super glue, because when these start to peel up, it's like the cloth tweed. Basically it's just hanging off the cabinet. So I take a little bit of super glue, dab it on there just to wet the material, and I either use the tip of my finger, or I use some kind of little implement like a piece of wood or something to press everything down and fold everything down neatly, and just keep dabbing it down, because it'll want to peel back up over and over again. So you just keep dabbing it down until it stays, and you end up with something that's more like this rather than the way it was, which was with frayed ends. I've left one actually so that we can get an idea of how to do it down here in the bottom corner. And we'll try to do this one-handed. But basically you can see, like here, you see how it's fraying up a little bit in here. I just get like a super glue and just squirt a little on there, and basically just saturate the material with the glue. And you want to try to get all of the little bits of tweed to stay going the direction that they originally were going. So you don't want to move tweed going diagonally and everything else. You want to try to keep it all straight. But what this is going to do is basically just lay everything down, glue it to the cab, and keep it from fraying further in the future. But I like to come down here, kind of just sort of dab it. Something like this so that it stays. And when that dries, that'll stay right down to the cab. It won't fray any more than that. And we've got another bit pulling away down here on the bottom, so we'll do this side as well. Same thing. This is kind of a bigger area, and it's going to want to keep pulling away over and over again, so you kind of have to hold it, dab it back down, and kind of train it to go back where it's supposed to. And all of this while not gluing your own fingers to anything. Actually, I'm going to use a stick or something here. Let's see. But see how it'll just keep trying to come away, but you have to keep laying it down over and over again. Just like that. And the reason to use super glue is because it has a really fast work time. So you know, when you're doing this and this stuff wants to keep peeling back up, it'll cure a lot faster, and you won't have to keep doing it. Okay, I think that's at least gonna stay. So there's that. All right, there she is, fully serviced. Everything came out looking pretty good. Our handle looks good. Our corners look good. They're in no more danger of fraying on the edges. And our chassis came out looking marvelous, if I do say so myself. Let's get it focused so you can actually tell. There we go. But yeah, the chassis came out looking really great. And you can see it a lot better out here actually. So killer looking amp, Great sounding amp. Let's get a listen to it, and you'll see what I mean. We're going to test this out with my 1967 Hofner Super Beetle guitar. Haven't had this one out in a while, so I figured I'll dust it off. We're going through the instrument channel, and let's give it a listen. Okay, let's try it through the microphone channel. Should be slightly hotter. Okay, we're going to try it now with a 1996 custom classic custom shop Tilly. So yeah, that is a early 1950s Valco Supro Spectator. Hope you've enjoyed this video. For more videos like this in the future, please click the subscribe button down here, and we'll see y'all later.